Australia and Indonesia have banned social media for youths aged 16 years and below. Is it time for the Philippines to do the same? Good morning, I'm Gerg Cahiles, sitting in for attorney Karen Jimeno, and this is At the Forefront. The internet is a beautiful thing. One can access information fast to help with work and studies, but it also has its drawbacks. Children with access to social media makes them vulnerable to bullying and other forms of abuse. Because of this, bills have been filed at the House and the Senate seeking a social media ban on youths aged 16 and below. But is this the right path to move forward? Let's find out. We'll be speaking with Yves Gonzales, TikTok head of public policy for the Philippines. And we also have Yuki Patricia Abion. She's the coordinator at Child Rights Network. Good morning,
Good morning.
Yves and Yuki.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Well, thank you for joining us this morning. Now, I would like to start with Yves. How vast is the operation of TikTok here in the Philippines?
Oh, in the Philippines,
Yes.
so we do have a big workforce here, especially on the TikTok shop side. So definitely on the TikTok shop, we have a lot of people here.
So far, how many users here in the Philippines? And if you can tell us how many children are using TikTok, if they're allowed to use it.
Okay, so in the Philippines, we have millions of users, right? And on TikTok, we allow a user to be at least 13 years of age. And so we have users on the 13 to 15, we have 16 to 17, of course, the adults on TikTok.
Okay, and with that, I would like to know, paano ba natin ini-ensure that since children,
Teens.
teens, na 13 years old and above, can use TikTok, but how do you ensure that somehow they are safe in your platform?
Of course. So at TikTok, we believe in safety by design, right? So there are different age-appropriate measures and safety defaults depending on your age on TikTok. So for example, if you're between 13 to 15, there's stricter age settings for you. So direct messaging is disabled, live streaming is disabled, privacy by default, so your account is private. If you're 16 to 17, some of the settings change, right? So depending on the maturity of the user.
Okay.
So we have those defaults that depend on the age of the user.
So ina-appropriate din natin based
That's correct.
on siguro kamalayan ng isang kabataan, which is something that we tackled before, Yuki, right?
Yes.
So somehow, kayo personally, doon sa organization nyo, are you satisfied on how TikTok is protecting the children in a way?
Siyempre, no, we are very open to engaging with our industry partners, lalo na insofar as it aligns with the advocacy and principles of the Child Rights Network. So what we're really advocating for is not necessarily a blanket ban, but itong mga to expand itong mga safety by design principles and also to acknowledge that there are certain elements of our digital environment that is not yet safe for children. So we also have observed that there should be more restrictions with regard to things that are yung mga ibang design features ng platforms that are addictive. So yung mga late night notifications, yung mga content or yung mga algorithmic nature of things that really drive longer engagement and sometimes even yung purposefully driving strong emotions tulad ng mga rage bait, yung mga ganoong bagay. Those are things that we want to be more strongly regulated for children.
Okay, it's good that you mentioned that because I want to go, Yves, to the European Commission findings on TikTok usage because initially they said that there could be some violations in relation to their Digital Services Act. Sa Pilipinas, wala naman tayong batas pa in relation to regulations sa social media. But they said that there's allegedly addictive platform design features and algorithmic systems. So since these findings, paano nag-a-adapt yung TikTok to these findings of various governments in different parts of the world?
So one of the things we believe at TikTok is really the concept of shared responsibility, right? So for example, as a parent, we have the responsibility to oversee the social media usage of our teens on the platform, right? So for TikTok, we create the technology that allows a parent to actually be able to have joint supervision and a little bit of engagement with the teen user. So for example, as to your screen time, as to the kind of content that your teen can see on the platform, as to the breaks. For example, you, as a parent, you can actually set that your teen child cannot use TikTok during school hours, or even as to who is following your teens, right? So that's definitely a big piece of it, which is the relationship between the parent and the teen, and how they have that ongoing conversation on how they use the platform, right?
Okay.
As to your own personal use naman, for example, on TikTok, as a user, you can actually set your breaks. So for example, you can be notified every 30 minutes to take a break, right? So again, we believe that there's no one-size-fits-all solution to every individual, to every family. So at TikTok, we empower our users to make those informed decisions based on what works best for them and their family.
Okay, of course, there is this criticism as well, based on that preliminary findings, that, well, it's difficult as well na magkaroon ng parental guidance, no? Dahil iba-iba rin naman yung capacity ng parents in terms of technology. So they may not be able to understand fully the system itself. So, and nabanggit mo rin, shared responsibility. So dapat siguro mapalakas din yung capacity of these parents to know how to navigate these technologies. So how do you do that?
We agree with you. So at TikTok, of course, one of the things we believe in is collaboration, right? And so definitely we know that we cannot have all the answers to ourselves. So for example, we work with local governments to be able to talk to parents on the ground, to teach them about the tools that are available to them. Because again, these local governments, usually sila yung may touch point with the parents on the ground, right? We work with educators. So we work with the Department of Education on TikTok Galing, which empowers educators to know about additional tools on media and information literacy, as well as the TikTok safety tools, right? And so we also work with our partners on the civil society to empower them, to educate them on the availability of tools and features on TikTok. So at every aspect of society, we try to have engagements and collaborations, because at the end of the day, we understand these problems that we're facing. This requires a multi-society approach talaga.
Okay, Yuki, did you ever see that from the parents na, especially in the Philippines, hindi naman tayo lahat talaga tech savvy, di ba? How do you assess the capacity of parents to oversee their activities on social media platforms?
I think right now, as TikTok especially as TikTok and even mga other technology platforms, social media platforms, internet intermediaries, emerge due to this emerge with new features, technologies that help with child safety. The challenge still continues to be, I believe, yung mga education, digital literacy campaigns na hindi lang dapat responsibility ng platforms, pero responsibility na rin ng governments and local governments to continue to roll out yung mga internet safety education, responsible digital citizenship, digital media literacy, yung mga ganoong campaigns para mas lalong ma-empower yung mga Filipino families with regard to this matter.
Yeah, speaking of families though, you have this family pairing. Can you talk more about that? Paano ba ito nangyayari, and how will this prevent yung possible things that might happen to children kapag gumagamit sila ng platform ninyo sa TikTok?
Sure. So with family pairing, it enables the parent and the teen to connect their accounts, and such that the parent has visibility and control over some of the settings in the teen's account. So this includes screen times. Again, yung what times are you allowed to be on the platform? For example, who are your friends, who are your connections. So again, it's important for the parent to know who are adding their teen on the platform, as well as other features of the app that the parent can actually control, right? So by having these controls within the hands of the parent, our aim is to have that two-way communication between the teen and the parent on how they can safely navigate the platform, how they can safely use the platform. And of course, as the teen grows, some of these settings, they could adjust together as a family.
Okay. Now, can a child have a TikTok account with parental supervision? And tell us about this family pairing. How can you further improve that siguro system na when we know already the problem that there is tech issues with parents, etc. So, can you talk more about that?
Yeah, definitely education. Education is a key part of this whole solution, right? So, for example, at legislature, there are actually discussions on on family pairing and basically these tools and how we could all work together to make them more well-known and more adopted by all the parents and families in the country, right? And so definitely on our part, we believe that education is a key piece of this puzzle and that we will continue to invest in making these tools more widely known and widely used.
Pero so far, gaano nakadami yung na-reach out ninyong partners? LGUs, nababanggit mo kanina, and civil society groups in terms of educating them?
As much as we have reached out, there will always be opportunities to reach more. Definitely, we're getting that feedback na not a lot of parents know how to use these tools, and definitely we will continue to invest on that.
Now, it was December last year when a social media ban for those under 16 years old took effect in Australia. Now, several countries are, following suit. So, this has been a discussion. Si Yuki nandito, pinag-usapan natin yan in the past, no? So, nasaan na tayo in terms of this discussion? Because there are several bills that were filed. And the last time that we spoke, Yuki, you were talking about the technical working group, no? Napag-usapan na. So, nasaan na tayo in terms of that?
Well, the latest development naman po is that we had a second technical working group meeting at the Senate. So at the House, we've had one technical group meeting so far, and then at the Senate naman may dalawa. So based on that, the bill still has a long way to go insofar as the process of a bill becoming a law. So what we see as civil society is that we're still at a very opportune moment na maging klaro at na mag-ingay or to be loud and clear with regard to our stances and what we really feel should be in place to help keep our kids safe online.
Is there an alternative to social media ban? But before you answer that, at the forefront, we'll be back after a short break. Welcome back at the forefront. We continue our conversation with Yves Gonzales, TikTok's head of public policy for the Philippines and Child Rights Network coordinator Yuki, Patricia, Abion. Now, the hanging question, is there an alternative to this social media ban? Yuki muna.
All right. So when it comes to the social media ban, we really, at least at Child Rights Network, we're against the blanket ban. So ito na rin yung update since the last time I was interviewed by you. Wala pang concrete or fully fleshed out stance ang CRN with regard to the ban. Pero ngayon, I'm able to say that the network has made its position clear. Now, we also had a recent media release. Now, we are against a blanket ban for children on social media. And instead, we're more advocating for safety by design principles, age-appropriate measures, and for stricter regulations, like let's say, for example, si Attorney Yves mentioned a while ago, age-appropriate content, but we also want to be able to advocate na sana yung mga accounts ng mga bata or ng mga kabataan ay hindi rin kita sa mga public search results, that they cannot be messaged by strangers, that there are also measures for parents to be able to ensure that their children are being kept safe online.
Well, Attorney Yves, in response to that, nagagawa na ba ng TikTok yun? Let's say, hindi mapakita yung profile ng mga bata sa strangers, hindi sila message. Are we doing that now?
Yes, definitely. So that's part of our safety by design principles, right? Such that the accounts of teens are private by default, right? So that's an example of age-appropriate settings, right? And so we're happy that right now the legislature is kind of moving towards this, wherein on one hand there's the safety and security safeguards, right? The defaults. We can all agree that there needs to be default settings to protect our teens on the platform. That's number one. Number two, as you mentioned earlier, education. We can all agree that we need to invest in education for the teens, for the parents, for the caregivers, for the families. We need to invest in education. And of course, number three, again, is the collaboration, that we all need to work together. Because this problem will not go away if we do not work together. We all have to have a role. We have government, we have civil society, we have the tech platforms, we have the parents, and of course, the teens themselves.
What's going to be the impact sa TikTok, particularly if the social media ban will be implemented?
So on our part, of course, we will continue to engage with the regulators in a constructive way. So we are actively participating in the legislative TWGs. And of course, we share our best practices. We share what we're seeing in other markets. And of course, we continue to hope that regulators take a practical, efficient, and evidence-based approach. That it's not just a ban is not the sole solution to the challenges at hand.
No, kasi ang pinag-uusapan sa Senado at saka sa House ngayon is the ban, no? So, those are the bills that are existing. Nako-convert na ba ito into regulatory aspect instead of ban? Because, experts argue that social media bans can be bypassed, rendering them ineffective. So, nakikinig ba yung mga lawmakers natin in terms of these opinions? Opinion ninyo, no? Ng platforms, ng mga advocacy groups. Yuki?
To an extent na opo. Because as we see na both of us, kami ni Attorney Yves, we both sit as resource persons sa mga TWG groups. And whatever input na manggagaling sa amin, eventually lalabas yan, we hope, sa magiging substitute bill or sa magiging committee report na rin once the TWGs conclude and once nagkaroon at na-condense at na-synthesize na yung mga insights from the past TWGs. With regard naman po sa Australia, since nabanggit nyo na rin po, CRN had the opportunity to consult with an expert from Australia that was able to follow, nasubaybayan ng expert na ito yung bill nila from its proposal up until its passing. So ang napansin namin that the effect at least of the initial enforcement sa Australia, it resulted in 4.8 million accounts from underage users being taken down. But there was also another finding naman sa survey nila na 7 out of 10 children still have a social media account doon sa Australia.
Paano sila nagkakaroon ng account?
Yes, so may ganoon din pong evidence. And there's another survey naman, so this third survey, that 1 in 3 parents in this survey reported willingness to help their children circumvent the ban naman. So we have those situations in Australia na if we replicate in the Philippines, we create a risk for having a law na mukhang stricto on paper, pero nawa-widely circumvent naman at nawa-widely bypass siya in reality. So yun yung mga ibang concerns na nakikita natin with the initial rollout in Australia. And there's also a point of concern, syempre, as child rights advocates, when we found out that children in Australia were not consulted pala during this legislative process. And this is a matter that, of course, concerns children. So these are realities that we see in Australia that we want to prevent na we make the same oversights here in the Philippines.
That's where exactly I want to go next, because what if we implement this? Maging batas ito. How about the implementation? Diba? Sorry, but in the Philippines, we have like good laws, but the problem is the implementation itself. And will it be more difficult to implement this, especially that with the statistics that you mentioned, nasi-circumvent talaga? Pwede, no? And it's gonna be more dangerous. What do you think?
I'll double click on that. So for example, if you have a ban, right, and then the parent allows their teen to use their account instead, right? So what will happen there is instead of the teen experiencing a teen age appropriate experience, it will be the parent's experience, right? So content that's meant only for the parent can be seen by the child, right? So instead of doing good to the teen, instead of actually protecting the teen, you're exposing the teen to adult content that was meant for the parents. So that's just an example of how a ban isn't the solution to this. That it's really a combination of the age assurance, safety by design principles. You have, again, the education between the parent and the teen, as well as, again, everyone else helping to solve the problem together. That a ban will just lead to unintended consequences.
I'm wondering now, yung mga kabataan ba, I'm sure, of course, yung mga bata, they cannot represent themselves right now sa House, no? Or sa Senate during TWG hearings. But may representation ba that, that will say na sila mismo, they're against it? Do we have studies that will say na that youths are against this policy, banning of social media? Yuki?
Well, what I'm happy to say naman is that there are civil society organizations, whether members man ng CRN or other child rights organizations, that are reaching out to their communities to listen to children, to talk to children, na pabor ba sila sa ban na to? Depende ba? What do they think is what should be present with regard to social media? And recently, actually, may nakita lang akong analogy that might be interesting to think about or to capture our experience. How do we think ba about the internet? Do we think about it, let's say, as a private establishment? Maybe even, let's say, a bar? Or do we think about it as a public space? As, let's say, for example, kalsada. Kasi if we think about the internet, let's say, as a bar, so ibig sabihin, may security guard, may close yan dapat sa mga bata, kasi syempre, it's not age-appropriate for them.
Correct.
But then when you think about the internet and our digital spaces as, let's say, a public space, a street, kapag delikado ba ang kalsada, hindi natatawid ng mga bata. So nakikita naman natin sa kalsada natin, we have pedestrian lanes, we have traffic enforcers, we have stoplights. We have these guardrails, these safety measures in place to ensure that children are still able to participate, to enjoy in these spaces because they are meant for all. These are a public space, it's a public good. But then there are measures to ensure that everyone is kept safe somehow. At meron din nga sa mga kalsada, di ba, mga disability inclusive accommodations. And these are things that we can also consider when thinking about how everyone is able to participate in our digital spaces.
Now, Yves, kasi syempre, nasa public policy work ka ngayon, ano? How receptive are our lawmakers in terms of your, siguro, your call for regulation instead of ban? Kamusta yung pakikipag-usap nyo sa mga mambabatas natin?
I think I'm happy to say naman that the Philippine stakeholders are reasonable. So for example, in the last Senate Technical Working Group that Yuki mentioned, the draft committee report that was out there actually was very workable for the industry. I think it adopted a lot of the inputs from the industry. And so if that particular committee report in the Senate was actually the law, it's something that we can all work with and could be effective. So we're very happy to see that Philippine stakeholders do listen and do take into consideration the inputs of civil society.
Okay, kasi nakita ko itong very interesting bill, Senate Bill 601 ni Senator Robin Padilla. And it's Children's Safety in Social Media Act. So instead of ban, mas regulatory yung kanyang hinihingi. Restriction on algorithm and targeted advertising. I remember we talked about it. Kasi nga, isang danger sa mga bata, yung mga inappropriate ads na nakikita nila sa TikTok. Are we doing something about that, Yves? May ginagawa ba tayo para hindi nila nakikita itong mga ads na ito?
Definitely. So, part of our policies is to ensure that ads are appropriate also for the viewer, right? So, for example, for teens, we do not target, we do not allow targeting specific to them, right? And so, there are safety regulations that govern what ads can be seen by a teen, as well as what ads can be seen by an adult. And so definitely we do take our precautions and we do have design principles that make sure that appropriate yung mga ads.
Fake accounts, natitake down nyo ba? Natatanggal nyo ba yung mga fake accounts or it's gonna be difficult? Kasi kung halimbawa, yung bata, mag-create siya ng fake account na magpo-post as an adult, ma-flag ba natin yun? Makikita ba natin yun?
So at TikTok, we use a combination of signals to detect what is the correct age of the user, right? So, for example, upon signing up, you say that you're 16, but we see some signals based on your consumption, based on your content creation, that you're actually under 13. Then we will definitely terminate your account. And this is something that we do on a regular basis. And this is, it's not just a one-time thing, but on a day-to-day basis, we do terminate accounts that are under our minimum threshold.
Gaano kadami yung nahuhuli nyo?
Yeah, on an annual basis, we do remove many accounts in the Philippines and globally. So we do have transparency reports that report our numbers on a global level, and so we can always refer to those numbers.
Okay, we were talking about social media addiction. May kaso sa US, di ba, na apparently napanalunan, but it's on appeal. And like what I mentioned, European Commission. What else can we do to prevent this social media addiction? Kaya lang, ito lang siguro magandang ma-point out that there is no Philippine-specific study yet na we can use para, alam mo yun, para malinaw yung pinanggagalingan. It's research-based. Hindi yung, while we can learn from other countries, but definitely, iba yung kung may data tayo sa Philippines mismo. What else can we do to prevent this supposed addiction na nagagawa? Although you mentioned about design, safety by design, etc. What else can we do to prevent this, Yuki?
Siyempre, at least for CRN, we don't necessarily also generate our own studies with regard to social media addiction. But we've also, kasama kami sa panawagan na hindi dapat may principles or may design features na addictive. That's part of our recommendation to the Senate. That on the legislation level, that it be legislated then to protect children against those addictive design features. But so we see that as a top-down approach, but we also understand the importance of a bottom-up approach to empower parents na we are at the point na technology evolves faster than our regulations can keep up. So a really big line of defense is going to be an informed user, is going to be informed families. So dapat magkasama ang top-down approach and yung bottom-up approach ng helping parents and families and helping children mismo to be able to be aware with regard to yung mga risks ng social media, with regard to the risks of being online for an excessive period of time, or engaging in content na hindi alam nila ay nagiging harmful na rin para sa well-being nila.
Okay, Yves, quickly. Will you allow researchers, independent researchers, to access your data in terms of improving itong services ng TikTok, especially to teens?
Yeah, definitely we have safety councils.
Okay.
So again, partnership, collaboration is part of our philosophy and DNA. So basically, if we always engage with local CSOs, regional CSOs, global partners, and so we always know that we could learn more, we could do more, and so we do take in the inputs and we do collaborate closely with third-party partners on how we can better protect our online space.
All right. Thank you very much, Attorney Yves Gonzales, and of course, Yuki Abion, for joining us this morning. I hope we can discuss more about this later on. Thank you. The debate on banning social media access for youth rages on, but even if a law on this is passed, there is no assurance that it will be effectively implemented. Reuters reports the implementation of the social media ban in Australia is also facing challenges. Maybe protecting children from the adverse effects of social media should not be handled by the government, but by the parents of these children. Be informed, be insightful of the news. I'm Gerg Cahiles. Always stay at the forefront. Thank you.